Now we are doing the topic of natural vegetation. We are using all the handmade maps specially prepared for you. After every topic, I'm just going to give you or test you on the basis of some MCQs. That means it is something that is growing naturally without any human interference per se. We will come to this after we have completed the lecture. But before that, let us focus on each and every natural vegetation individually, the examples and the aspects associated with the natural vegetation. Let's move ahead. Hello aspirants, welcome to PW OnlyIAS English. I am here Harpreet Singh with another very interesting topic from the Indian geography, that is natural vegetation. We've already done many chapters from the Indian geography, like the Indian location. The second chapter was the structure and physiography. The next chapter was the drainage system, and next the climate. Now we are doing the topic of natural vegetation. Please students, please note this very carefully. The NCERTs form the core of your civil services preparation. If you really want to qualify it, you need to understand the concepts and basics in the NCERTs well. And that is the reason we are putting a lot of effort for you to resolve every query that you come across during your preparation, be it geography or any other subject. And based on that, we are working really hard for you. Like for you students, all these series, we are using the handwritten notes. We are using all the handmade maps specially prepared for you. Along with it, simplification of all the complex concepts like you saw in the topic of climate. Along with it, the English language is being used, which many aspirants demanded because they wanted the lectures in English because they're going to attempt the paper in English. Along with it, meeting the exact demand of the Union Public Service Commission. Now, one more thing that many students mailed me and asked me for that. That is, check your knowledge questions. What we're going to do now is, after every topic, I'm just going to give you or test you on the basis of some MCQs. Now, please note, I'm not going to give you the answers right now. Once the video is posted, few hours after the video being posted, I will put the answers in the comment section. So you all have to quickly go through the video and solve the questions based on the numbers you have to answer in the comment section. So let's start with today's video, that is natural vegetation. Let's begin. So this is the Telegram account where you can basically find the PDF. Along with it, you can find the PDF in the free NCERT batch on the PW OnlyIAS app. Now let's begin. What is natural vegetation? Now, natural vegetation, according to the NCERT, it refers to the plant community that has been left undisturbed. The plant community that has not been disturbed over a long period of time, so as to allow its individual species to adjust themselves to the climate and soil conditions as fully as possible. Now, if we talk about the natural vegetation, the word natural comes, it is obviously because it is not artificial in nature. That means it is something that is growing naturally without any human interference per se. That is why it is known as natural vegetation. Now, two things become very, very important when you're doing or studying the chapter of natural vegetation. That is the topic or concept of forest area and the concept of forest cover. Whenever you read any report regarding the forest, these two topics form the core idea. Let's understand them first before we move ahead in understanding the classification with respect to the natural vegetation. Forest area. This is the land marked as forest land by the government or authorities. On the other hand, forest cover includes an area greater than 1 hectare where the canopy density is greater than 10%. Now see, understand this very carefully. Supposingly, an area is here. Now, it has been declared by the government as a forest area, though there might not be a single tree present. But it is declared by the government as forest area, then it will be considered as a forest area. It to be called as a forest cover, it should meet this criteria that greater than 1 hectare where the canopy density is greater than 10%. Then it is forest cover. This is basically from the perspective of revenue generation. That is why this concept is very different, right? So this is the concept of forest area and forest cover. Area that is marked by the government as forest area, though there might be forest or though there might not be forest. or no trees there, even then it can be called as a forest area because it has been declared by the government or the concerned authorities. But for it to be called as a forest cover in a particular area, it has to at least meet this requirement of greater than 1 hectare and a canopy density of greater than 10%. Let's move ahead and see the dimensions associated with the classification. Now you will be saying, sir, you have made a map in front of you and presented all these things. Bache, please remember, this is a summary map. Why I am putting it prior to explaining you is, when you see this map, I will not recommend you to go through it before going to the chapter. First, we will go through the chapter, then we will return. This is like a mind map or a summary of the complete chapter or the classification that you study. So you can get a brief idea that this is a tropical thorn forest, this is a deciduous forest, then you have the evergreen forest, then you have the montane forest, and swampy and all types of forests are present here. This is just a mind map. We will come to this after we have completed the lecture, but before that, let us focus on each and every natural vegetation individually, the examples and the aspects associated with the natural vegetation. Let's move ahead. First is tropical evergreen. You would see this. Every single map that has been drawn here is drawn by hand, as I promised you in the initial or the start of the lecture. Why it has been drawn is, very often students feel that, sir, very often people see that printed maps are posted, but people say it is very difficult to make those maps, right? Now, this will urge you yourself also to make these maps. When you have an expertise over the maps, remember, you not only get good marks in geography, but also along with it, you score very well in other subjects if you have the art or the ability to make maps. If you're doing any topic for that matter, population, even history, you can use maps, right? So let's come back. Tropical evergreen forest. Along with it, under this we'll be reading tropical evergreen and semi-evergreen also. But overall, what do you see? This is the area, right? This green area that has been marked. See this green area, this green area, this green area, which has been marked as tropical evergreen. Now let's study about it. Where it is located, I'm telling you, I'm guaranteeing you, every candidate over here, if you follow this content rigorously, whatever is written on the board, I am guaranteeing you this, you will see the questions coming in the civil services prelims as well as the mains, and directly and indirectly also from this content. This is a guarantee from my side. If you do this rigorously, if you practice it, you will be able to solve the questions that come from these sections. And I'm telling you reality, most of the questions can be solved from the NCERTs if there is from the static portion. Obviously, current thing comes, then you have to link it with the current affairs, but you can do all those static questions using the content which I'm giving you during this NCERT series. So please follow it rigorously, right? Location, the western slopes of the Western Ghats. Now, please understand, if I see this region, you realize this is the Western Ghats. Now, the western slope, this region of the western slope, that means this side, that is the windward side. So that is, there is going to be a lot of rainfall in the windward side. And because of that, you realize there is a very dense vegetation. So windward side of Western Ghats, hills of the northeastern region, over here you realize regions of Mausam Ram, regions of Cherrapunji and other regions receive a lot of rainfall, right, from the monsoon winds. So this region and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, so you realize this region also. So this complete region over here is basically what? Basically marked by the tropical evergreen forest. By the word evergreen, you yourself understand something that is green all the time. Yes? So what are the climatic conditions that are associated with this? First is the mean annual temperature is greater than 22 degrees Celsius. Warm and humid climatic conditions, rainfall greater than 200 centimeters annually. Now, these things, these parameters that have been mentioned in front of you, please students remember, these can very well be asked by UPSC in one of the statements or various statements that are presented there. So, you should be very aware of these particular details that I'm underlining here. And these have been asked, these will be asked, so please do make a note of it. Now comes the characteristics. Now, if you see, these are very well stratified. What do you mean by stratified? Now, if you see, there are various layers through which you can see the evergreen forest. Like there will be very tall trees, then relatively some shorter trees, then you'll be having a lot of creepers and shrubs at the ground level also. So what do you see? Well stratified, shrubs and creepers near the ground. Then slowly other trees, taller trees, even for the taller trees. So it is like a stratification or stratified layers that are present. And then tall trees can reach up to 60 meter above. And it is all the year round green. That is why it is known as tropical evergreen. These are the characteristics of tropical evergreen forest. Along with it, let's see some other characteristics. Now, this is very, very important. What happens is UPSC from the past few years has been using the types of forest or the types of trees or varieties of trees that are present in various forests. Like they will be listing certain things like ebony, rosewood and all, and they'll ask you which among the following are basically present in, let us say, tropical evergreen or tropical semi-evergreen. So you should be aware of these names. I have used all the names that are present in the NCERT so that when you revise these notes that I presented you, you will be able to solve all the questions that are coming in your prelims examination. Again, as I said, guaranteeing you, you will see for it. If you see the past year questions also, then also, and the questions that are going to come in the future, you can observe that and note it down. Flora and fauna, you'll realize ebony, mahogany, rosewood, rubber, cinchona or cincona as you pronounce it. These are the major varieties of the trees that are basically present in the tropical evergreen forest. So you should all remember it. There are going to be certain overlaps in various vegetation also because, see, there is no very strict demarcation sometimes. If, let us say, wet evergreen, let us say tropical evergreen is there, then you have next semi-evergreen. So some plants and some trees might overlap, but overall you should be remembering them. Certain animals like elephants, monkeys, lemurs, deers are very commonly found here. Now, these are the characteristics or the dimensions associated with tropical evergreen forest. Within the tropical evergreen, there is some other category which we study, that is semi-evergreen. Now, these are regions which receive little less rainfall in comparison to the tropical evergreen. So obviously there will be variation with respect to the vegetation that is present and also the characteristics associated with that. So see, semi-evergreen, these lie in the less rainy part of the regions. Wherever you have the tropical evergreen, then there will be certain areas around it which are relatively less, receiving less rainfall. Those are basically semi-evergreen. So sometimes you will be realizing semi-evergreen will also have a little bit overlap with the deciduous forest because some climatic conditions do match. But whatever is written over here as based on the NCERT is important because UPSC will pick up features and characteristics from these particular statements. Please understand, UPSC picks up content from the NCERT because it is a government resource. So, mixture of evergreen and moist deciduous trees, as I mentioned, is also found here. Now, examples: white cedar, hollock, kale are the main tree species found here. These have been asked again, they can put names of 3 species. Do they lie in which among the following varieties of forest? Semi-evergreen, tropical evergreen, moist deciduous, tropical thorn. Then you should remember these. What I mentioned here, what I mentioned here, right? Let's move ahead. So we are done with the tropical evergreen and semi-evergreen forest. Now comes the next category. You would have realized this. This green part, this part, these all, the evergreen region, also in the Andaman Nicobar region. Now when we move to the tropical deciduous, so if you see the pink part, you saw, these are tropical deciduous forest. But the important thing lies is, tropical deciduous forest is not just one category. Now within this region, you will be realizing certain regions which are very close to the semi-evergreen forest will have relatively more rainfall, and as you go in the interior, possibly within the deciduous forest, there will be certain types or areas which will be receiving less rainfall. That is why the tropical deciduous forests are itself divided into 2 categories. Let's see them based on the rainfall in particular. Now, this is the most widespread forest and it is also known as a monsoon forest. Now, this can be asked in the examination. The problem that arises is, if they ask a statement that, let us assume that the evergreen forest is known as monsoon forest. Now you will say yes, because evergreen means a lot of rainfall and that means monsoon is also in India, so that means it is correct. No. This region, this forest particularly is marked by monsoon forest, so you should not do that error. Monsoon forest is a word that is associated with tropical deciduous forest. What is the conditions? You will realizing location that is spread over areas which receive rainfall from 100 to 200 centimeters. Now you'll be seeing this is this is quite a wide range that you have considered, from 70 centimeters range to 200 centimeters range. It is quite huge. Yes, that is why the tropical deciduous is divided into two categories. One is the moist deciduous, which receives rain from 100 centimeters to 200 centimeters. Other is the dry deciduous, which receives rainfall from 70 centimeters to 100 centimeters. So that is why, based on the rainfall, we have categorized this forest into two categories and the regions associated with them. Now let us study them. See, moist deciduous forest. Now, when I study moist deciduous forest, you very well know that there are certain characteristics which are going to overlap with the semi-evergreen forest, right? So see here, eastern slopes of the Western Ghats, Odisha, in the northeastern states along the foothills of the Himalayas are the major regions where you can find the moist deciduous forest, where the rainfall is relatively high. Why? Because you know that moist deciduous forests are associated with rainfall that is ranging from 100 to 200 centimeters annually. 100 to 200 centimeters annually. What are the examples here? This becomes very important here. Teak, bamboo, sal, or sal as you say in Hindi, shisham, mahua, amla, simul, kusum, and sandalwood. Now, these are all the examples of the moist deciduous, and you should remember it. Now, people will be getting confused. You would be getting confused, sir, that you have been mentioning about these trees and that so many types of trees are present here. And it is very difficult to remember those trees. How can we basically remember them? But you remember, when you're watching the lecture, for you during that time, it is important you understand the every aspect that I'm mentioning right now, using the map, using the content. Once you've understood, the first step is done. Second step begins is, after understanding, read the content again that has been written on the board, which you will download it. Read it again, read it again. Now, many people will say, sir, this is rote learning. No, it is not. Rote learning is learning, not learning, first of all. It is that type of mugging up where you are not understanding. Once you have understood and then you revise it again and again, then it is stored in your memory. And when I used to study, when I studied for the first time, I myself got confused that so many trees are there, how can I remember it? But the irony is, UPSC repeatedly asked question from this particular chapter using the trees that are mentioned here. And that time, just because you say it is very difficult to remember these trees, we tend to neglect this chapter, and then one or two questions come in the examination. That means you are losing those 4 marks at least. Do not do that. Whatever notes that I'm giving you right now, after watching the lecture, please do watch the lecture, because it is very important for you to understand. Once you watch the lecture, post that, download the content, which is again available on the PW app, and also in the YouTube description link that you can see, and also in the Telegram account, which you can see, which I've mentioned earlier. Read it, revise it, underline it. Read it, revise it, underline it, and you will be remembering them, right? Let's move ahead. Now, when we are talking about dry deciduous forest, this is from 100 to 200. Now, the dry deciduous is again on the side, which has even lesser rainfall. So, it is from the range of 70 to 100 centimeters. This is the annual rain is received in these regions, or the drier parts of the drier parts of these areas, interior parts, right? That is why the peninsular regions, if you see this part of Rajasthan, you can see. So this region all are receiving relatively less rainfall. It is not thorn, it is not that completely thorny or a dry region, relatively drier region in comparison to the moist deciduous. So over here, rainier areas of the peninsular India, regions of North Indian plains, parts of the western and the southern Rajasthan, right? Now, a particular word that is used in your NCERT, that is very important here. What is it? These forests have parkland landscape. Parkland. Now, please understand, when you go to the park, what is the most interesting thing that you see? There will be certain trees, and there will be certain grasses, certain amount of grass, and then you can walk easily, and some trees again after some time, right? This is the general thing that you see. Based on that, a word has been given, parkland landscape. What it means? See, open stretches in which teak and other trees are interspaced with patches of grass. Somewhat as you see in a park, where certain teak trees, this is something natural, though what I mentioned about the place where when you go into lawns and all, that is something different, but easier to understand. When you go to certain parks and all, what do you see? Some trees, then grasses and all. Similarly here, naturally, we have some varieties of teak, certain other varieties of teak, and between them, all that region is covered with grass. That is why this is a characteristic of the dry deciduous forest where such type of landscape is formed. That is why it is known as parkland landscape. Clear? What are the trees that are found here? You can see we have tendu, palus, amalthus, bale, kher, axlewood and others. Now these again become important. You have to revise it. You will be remembering it. These are the in totality the deciduous forest, moist and dry. You have seen over here, the map is also here. So please understand, this is the important thing. When you study the map along with the content, you will remember it also. Once you use, the person who uses a map, that is why we are drawing the map by hand. Why? So that you practice it. Even when you are remembering, you're revising, try to make the map. Try to see how you can demarcate the vegetation. If you are able to demarcate this, then you will not even have to remember the locations because you have already done this on the map, so you can recall because of the logic that you have applied. Clear? Now comes the first question. See here, every single candidate over here has to answer in the comment section. There are 5 to 6 questions that are there in this particular lecture. I want the answers of all the questions. If you're generally watching it, I'm telling you, make the best use of it. Take some time, put it in the comment section, so this is the answer. This is the answer. That is what shows the spirit in you that you want to qualify this examination, right? First question under the check your knowledge section. Parkland landscape is associated with which type of vegetation in India? First, tropical thorn forest. Second, moist deciduous forest. Third, dry deciduous forest. Fourth, semi-evergreen forest. Take your time and you can comment, put the answer in the comment section. You will get the answers after the video has been posted on the YouTube. After a few hours, I'll be posting the answers in the comment section. Let's move ahead. Next comes the tropical thorn. Now see, this section, which is in yellow, if it is, I think it will be clearly visible to you all. This complete section of yellow, along with this section, the interior part, which is very dry. This part and this part, this basically represents the tropical thorn. Now see here, where it is found, you can very well identify itself. These are the regions of Punjab, Haryana, the parts of Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, UP, and these are also in the regions in the middle, close to the Karnataka region also, right? So, found in the areas of rainfall less than 50 centimeters, semi-arid areas of Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat, MP, UP. Now, description, please understand. Plants remain leafless for most of the parts of the year. And that is why this type of vegetation is known as scrub vegetation. Again, an important parameter which can be asked. Do you realize these important words that I've highlighted, which you tend to neglect when you are reading the various books, or not even NCERT, other books also? You tend to neglect these words. These words might not be mentioned in various books. That is why the NCERT becomes important. Parkland landscape, scrub vegetation. This has been highlighted over here. Now, what are the types of trees that you can basically found? The names of them: babool, bear, wild date, palm, kher. Again, kher is also present in the dry deciduous, so this is commonality. Neem, khejri, palus. Now, in these regions, you will have, right? In these particular regions, you will be having the socky grass, which grows up to a height of 2 meters as the undergrowth. Now, please understand, there will be a lot of regions over here where you have grasses going on, which might extend to a lot of height. That is known as socky grass. This again forms a very important parameter of your tropical thorn forest. So let's move on to the next check your knowledge question. Tussocky grass is associated with which vegetation? Tropical evergreen forest, tropical thorn, dry deciduous forest, montane forest. Right now, it will be appearing very easy for you that you've just taught and you're asking a question. But remember, once you're solving these questions and putting the answers in the comment section, you will remember them. And you will realize that these questions will be asked as one or two statements in your big or huge question that is asked in the preliminary examination. Then you will realize, yes, sir, we did that question and that is why we remember that. Clear? This is the second question. I want the answer from each and everybody. Tussocky grass is associated with which of the vegetations? First, tropical evergreen. Second, tropical thorn. Third, dry deciduous. Fourth, montane forest. I want your answers in the comment section. Next is montane forest, a very interesting, very important type, because a lot of questions have been asked in the previous years based on these and the understanding associated with them. Many people do not understand this forest well, and that is why they tend to mark the answers wrong. The most important answer over here is, when you see the montane forest, this is a map that is presented in the NCERT also. When you see this map, you realize, okay, the montane forest, this is the mountain region, and that is why this is the forest. The irony lies is, the northern part of the Himalayas are not the only region where you have the montane forest. They are also present in the regions of the south also, where you have mountains which have achieved a lot of height. Because of the height that is achieved, you realize there is altitude, and you know, as with the increase in the altitude, there is decrease in the temperature when you talk about troposphere. So there are a lot of mountains in the southern India also which achieve a certain height, and that creates an environment where the climate is relatively cold or represents somewhat similar to that of the northern part. That is why many regions in the south also have vegetation that is very identical or similar to that is found in the montane forest of the north. So it is found in the north also and south also, which we will study. Let's see that. Firstly, the representation can be made in these regions, but also in the south, we'll see that. The forests are characterized by a decrease in temperature with an increasing altitude. And based on this, you realize we have the northern montane forest and the southern montane forest, right? Please understand, right now we are talking only of the northern montane forest, that is in the regions of these Himalayas and the northeastern region Himalayas that are present, which we studied in the previous chapters. Over here, a general observation has been made with respect to the type of vegetation that is found based on the height. Now, please see this. This is being represented in a form of a chart. This is also written in your NCERT. So if you do this, you will be getting various answers, right, which are asked directly or indirectly in your preliminary examination. This ranges shows succession of vegetation from tropical to tundra. What do you mean by tropical to tundra? We realize there is deciduous forest region that are forests that are associated in regions receiving rain from 70 to 200 centimeters. But if you go above, let us say in certain regions where the height is increasing, definitely the vegetation will increase. So this is that vegetation of tropical forest. Now, if the height ranges from 1000 meter to 2000 meter, you will realize this is known as wet temperate. Over here, you will see that the vegetation is like pine, char, oak, and these are found in the hilly regions of West Bengal and Uttarakhand. Very commonly found here. If the height increases from 2000 to 3000 meter, these type of vegetation comes under the temperate type. And here you will find coniferous forest, blue fir, chinar, walnut, found in various parts, regions of Kashmir also you see chinar forests, chinar trees. Beyond that, if you realize, from 3000 to 4000 meter, again very big, very huge height, that is 4000 meters itself is an altitude that requires the conditions become really very cold over there. So that is alpine in nature. Over there you will find silver fir, juniper, birch, pine, and rhododendrons. Now, trees stunted as a slow line near. Snow line means the regions above which you have complete cover of snow. Beyond that is a tundra type where you can find mosses and lichens that are present, because it is not easy for other types of vegetation to survive in those cold regions and the cold climate. So this is again important for your understanding and knowledge with respect to the northern montane forest. Clear? Once you have understood the northern montane forest, now comes the second particular part, that is the southern montane forest, which you generally neglect. The southern montane forest, now please understand, once the NCERT begins, it basically tells you that these are found in three distinct areas: Western Ghats, Vindhyas, and Nilgiris. Because now when you study this, you realize, okay, it's fine. These are only in these three areas. But when you go and understand and study the NCERTs in depth, you realize there are other regions in the southern India also which are marked, which have the southern montane forest. That is why everything that I've written here and colored becomes important. First thing is, they are found in three distinct areas: in the Western Ghat region, okay, in the Vindhyan range, you realize it is over here, Vindhyans. Then you have the Nilgiris, which are the merger point of the Eastern and the Western Ghats. Okay, fine. We can understand the altitude is there. So the montane forest will be found in these regions also. Now, over here, the vegetation is temperate and in the higher regions and subtropical in the lower regions. First, second thing, the temperate forest are called sholas. Sholas in which all region? In the Nilgiris, in the Anamalai, and the Palani Hills. This has been asked in various PCS examinations also. Sholas in these particular regions, right? Next, what are the types of forest or trees that are found? You have magnolia, laurel, cinchona, wattle. Another interesting thing happens is, at the end of the paragraph in the NCERT, they write, southern montane forest is also present. The southern montane forest is also present in the Satpura and the Maikal range. That is why when you see these regions, it is fine, but it is also present here. And this is where UPSC tends to play with you. That is not only mentioned in these regions, but these regions also and these regions also. So all these regions have southern montane forest. While many will restrict themselves to these three regions because they had seen it is highlighted in the initial paragraph of the NCERT, but they neglect these parts. That is why whatever we are teaching here, we are teaching it very comprehensively so that you remember every word, right? Now, next question is check your knowledge, question number 3. Very important question for you. Let's see how many of you can answer this question well based on the knowledge that you have gained and your studies and this lecture. The question number 3 says, montane forest is found, again, let's see, montane forest is found among which of the following places? First, Himalayas. Second, Western Ghats. 3, Nilgiris. 4th, Satpura. 5th, Maikal range. 6th, Anamalai. The options are 1 and 2 only, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, all, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll be waiting for your answers in the comment section and let's see who all can answer as quickly as possible, and the answer should be correct with respect to the montane forest. Let's move to the next question. This is check your answer number 4. Check your knowledge for that matter. And for that matter, let us make it very clear. When your knowledge is being checked, we need to check your answers. So, under the section of check your knowledge, who all can get the answer correct? Let's see in the comment section. The question is, Shola, a temperate forest associated with which of the following location? Nilgiris, Anamalai, Palani, Satpura, Maikala. Options 1, 2, 3 only, 1 and 2 only, 1, 2, 3, 4 only, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want your answers in the comment section. I'll be waiting for those answers and let's see all those students who can get the answer correct and as quickly as possible. Now, these are the types of questions that are asked in the civil services. Based on the NCERT, which we tend to get it wrong and presume and assume that from where the questions have been asked, right? Let's see and check your knowledge. Next are the littoral and the swamp forest. Now, in the UPSC, many times these questions are asked because these are important from the perspective of ecosystem and the mangroves also. But this becomes important. Now, see, if I want to see the map over here, if you see these are the regions, littoral and swampy forest are found along the deltas also. Let's see and categorize them and understand them. These are types of wetlands forest ecosystem in the coastal and the waterlogged regions in India. Now, when I say littoral and swampy, these are generally taken as one, assumed as one, and many people do not differentiate it also. But there is difference with respect to their understanding. So let us understand what is littoral and what are swampy forest. Though as in the NCERT also, they are given as one. So you can assume as one, but you should know what is the difference, because UPSC can again ask them, and it has asked in various other examinations other than the civil services paper also. So you should know them. Littoral forests are basically referring to the coastal forest that grow along the sea coast, including the mangrove forest. Yes. Swampy in literal sense means these forests grow in freshwater or brackish waterlogged areas like river deltas, estuaries, and lake margins. So these are just general understanding what these two terms basically mean. Now, if you see the NCERT, the wetlands, as we were talking, in India are put into 8 groups to understand them. In the examination also, you can be asked questions on them, so you should be knowing. So all these things are included as a part of the wetland. Reservoirs in the Deccan Plateau, extensive saline areas like the Gulf of Kutch, freshwater lakes and reservoirs, delta wetland and lagoons, floodplains, freshwater marshes, lakes and rivers, mangroves, forest. These are the 8 categorizations that are included in the categorization of wetland as mentioned in the NCERT. Clear? So you should make a note of these. So let's move ahead and understand a little bit about the mangrove forest also. So the mangrove forests are spread over 6,740 kilometers square. That is 7% of the world's mangrove cover. They basically grow along the coast in the salt marshes and the tidal creeks. These are salt tolerant because in the regions very often there is water and water logging where the salt content increases tremendously. So these are salt tolerant varieties and species of plants found in along the deltas of Ganga, Mahanadi, Krishna, Godavari, and Kaveri. Such type of vegetation is found, right? So next, check your knowledge, question number 5. Let's see how many of you can get the answer correct. The question is, wetland will include which of the following? Let us assume, what are the options? Floodplains, mangrove forest, reservoirs of the Deccan, lagoon. Option number 1, only 2. Option number 2, 1 and 2 only. Option number 3, 1, 2, 3. Option number 4, all of them. Let me see how many of you can get the answer correct and as quickly as possible. Let's see. Then a very important section. Over here, many questions have been asked in the various PCS examinations and also in other examinations other than the civil services. Certain plants have been mentioned, medicinal plants, and their value and importance. So see here. Sarpagandha over here is used for treating blood pressure and found only in India. That is why this becomes important, only in India. In the examination, it can be written, this the name of the plant, and then it is used for treating blood pressure, fine. Second would be it is found only in India, and there you will get confused. Is it in India? Because only is mentioned. Possibly it can be found in other regions close to India also. This is why the reason you should read NCERT. These only, all, except, these things are also mentioned in the NCERT. So you'll be confident while attempting the answers. Next is jamun. It has digestive properties and controlling diabetes. Arjun, cure earache and control BP. Babool, cure eye sores. Neem, high antibiotic and antibacterial properties. Tulsi, very well often used in teas also, cure cough and cold. And then you have the Kachnar, cure asthma and ulcers and good for the digestive problems. Over here, you can be asked a question, which among the following are good or have digestive properties? Because digestive properties over here, you can see, it's mentioned here also. It is mentioned with respect to this particular also, right? So these things become very, very important, right? Let's move ahead. Now comes forest conservation. Now please understand, though there are old forest policies also, you don't have to go during the British time, just for general studies. But what is important here is you should remember 1952 and 1988. These become important for you because it is mentioned in the NCERT also, right? So forest policy, basically, what do you mean by forest policy? Forest policies are the policies that are decided by the government. So what should be the way ahead with respect to conservation of the forest and the dimensions associated with the forest? Now, National Forest Policy 1952 was again a very important landmark with respect to independent India. See here, it basically talked about 33% of the geographical area should be under the forest cover. Realize this, the word forest cover is said, not forest area, because it is talking about the actual forest of the trees that are present here, not a land that is demarcated as forest area. That is why I told you the word forest cover and forest area. Forest area is that area which is demarcated by the government or the authorities as forest area, though there might be not a single tree, because it is from the perspective of revenue generation. Forest cover is that particular area which is expected to have again the forest based on the category, that means greater than 1 hectare, and at least 10% of the canopy density should be there. So that is a criteria that should be there, right? So bringing 33% of the geographical area under the forest cover, maintaining environmental stability. That means environment stability becomes an important criteria here. Conserving natural heritage, biological diversity and gene pool. Checking the soil erosion, again important. Increasing the forest cover, right? Increasing the productivity of forest to make timber, fuel, fodder and food available. And next, creating a massive people movement where people themselves together with the government authorities work together towards conserving of the forest. So these are the major points with respect to National Forest Policy 1952. Now comes National Forest Policy 1988. What are the objectives? First, environment stability. Second, conservation of natural heritage. Soil and water conservation, meeting the local needs who require, let us say, fuel wood and all. Increasing forest and tree cover. Tribal and forest dwellers welfare. Now over here, please understand. You realize there are a lot of tribals staying in the forest regions, and also other than the scheduled tribes, there are other forest dwellers. Those forests, for them also, they have been staying there for a very long time, and they have certain rights which have been recognized under the Forest Rights Act. That is why their development also becomes very important. Though it was declared in 1988, it took a lot of time for the Forest Right Acts to come, right? But let's see, they are recognizing the tribal and the forest dwellers' welfare. What are the key provisions? Now, the emphasis has been on joint forest management, that is local communities to communities participation is there, so that a movement initiative is taken where the government is also contributing, but people also together there to conserve the forest as a whole, like a movement. Maintain a forest cover of 33%, 60% in the hilly and the 20% in the plains. Diversion of forest land, there are restrictions that are imposed, but if the diversion takes place due to there is need of developmental activities that are taking place, in that particular case, there are certain things that have been mentioned. In that case, restrictions are there, but if diversion is necessary, then compensatory afforestation will be there. Compensatory, that means some other regions where plantation of the forest will take place in order to compensate for that. Industrial needs, industries must their own plantation for the raw material. So if there are certain industries which require, let us say, wood, let us say there are a lot of plywood companies that are coming up, though they are using now artificial resources also from raw material, but recycling also. But if they want, they should have their own land and they should grow the raw material. The trees that grow very quickly, they can be used by those plywood industries. So the topic here is that if the wood is required by the industries, they should be having their own plantation in order to use it, right? Wildlife conservation, protection of the forest ecosystem, and corridors important for biodiversity. Next, question number 6. Check your knowledge. Very important. See here. Which forest policy first talked about 33% forest cover as important for sustainability? So let's study them again. Which forest policy? Very important topic. So the question is, check your knowledge. Which forest policy for the first time talks about 33% forest cover is important for sustainable development or sustainability in India? Which forest policy? First, Indian Forest Policy 1894, Indian Forest Policy 1952, Indian Forest Policy 1988, or the Forest Right Acts 2006. I want your answers in the comment section. Let's see who all can answer this correct based on the understanding and the knowledge that has been given you during the lecture. Okay, now comes another very important part that is mentioned in your NCERT, or the topics that are mentioned, like social forestry. The moment you read about the word forestry, okay, that has got something to do with forest, agreed, social. So the confusion comes, and a lot of problem arises that various books tend to give different classifications. Please understand, follow the NCERT. That is why we are telling you, we're giving you very comprehensive notes that will be good enough for you to understand, revise, and perform well in the examination. See here, social forestry means management and protection of the forest. So that means there is management and protection of the forest and afforestation on barren land with the purpose of helping the environment, social and rural development. So social forestry over here is not only meeting the requirements of the people, but also it is protecting and also growing forest in the regions where the forest is not there. That means the barren land. So it is a way of sustainable development that we see with respect to forestry, right? Under the social forestry, there are three broad categorizations. See here. First is urban forestry, second is rural forestry, third is farm forestry, right? See here. Okay. First is urban forestry, second is rural forestry, third is farm forestry. What is urban forestry? The moment we talk about urban forestry, you can very well know that we're talking about urban regions and something got to do with forest in the urban regions, right? So, raising and management of trees in public and privately owned land in and around urban centers. So this is very important. It is not restricting itself to public places, but also private places. So in the examination, it can be asked that urban forestry deals with forestry or plantation with respect to the forest in the public places only. No, it is dealing with the private land also. So over here, the word public and over here, the privately becomes again very important for you. Clear? That is why this is what urban forestry is. Next comes rural forestry. The moment I talk about rural, you very well know it has got to do with the dimensions of the rural regions where the requirement of the forest wood is very important, right? So see here, lays emphasis on the promotion of agroforestry and community forestry. So please, bache, understand this. If I want to talk about rural forestry, there are two things that are present here. See here, agroforestry and community forestry, right? First and second. Now you say, sir, you're talking about rural and you're talking about agro and community forestry. That means rural forestry itself has these two categorization. Let us see what they are. Rural forestry has agroforestry and community forestry. Before we understand farm forestry, rural forestry has agroforestry. What do you mean by agroforestry? That means agriculture and forest. That means combining forestry with agriculture is known as agroforestry. Please understand, supposingly it is very useful. You've planted some crops, you surround the regions with, let us say, trees. Now, trees over there act as windbreakers. That is the benefit. Along with it, there is again an exchange of nutrition between the trees and obviously the crops that are growing. Along with it, after some time, you can realize those if the trees are fast growing, you can later on cut them and sell them in the market also, right? So it is double or triple benefit that you achieve by the agroforestry. Yes. Next, under rural forestry is community forestry, raising of trees on public and community land. Obviously, to achieve the aim of the social forestry, this is known as community forestry. So what we have done, we have understood what is urban forestry, we have understood rural forestry, which has two categories, agro and community, which we have seen over here, agro and community. Now comes the aspect of again farm forestry. Farmers grow trees for commercial and non-commercial purpose. There will be overlap between the various categorization, but this is a standard categorization that is given. That means farm forestry, farmers grow trees for commercial and non-commercial purpose. Clear? So these are the three types under the social forestry. Next comes wildlife conservation, which is mentioned in your NCERT and again becomes very, very important. The most important act which we talk about when we talk about the wildlife conservation is the Wildlife Protection Act, the Wildlife Act, that is 1972. Now, it is which was amended in 1991. It serves as a primary legal framework for wildlife conservation and protection in India. Now, what are the two objectives? This can be asked in your paper also in examination. What are the objectives or the primary objectives of the Wildlife Conservation, Wildlife Protection Act for that matter? Okay. Now, overall, if you see, when I talk about the Wildlife Act of 1972, right? When I talk about the Wildlife Act of 1972, safeguarding endangered species listed in the Act. What it is? Safeguarding endangered species listed in the Act. All those species which have been listed as endangered, they have to be protected or safeguarded. That is the first. Under the Wildlife Act of 1972, first is safeguarding the endangered species that are listed in the Act. Second is providing legal support to the conservation areas of the country, like the national park, sanctuaries, and the closed areas. This is the second role that is there, right? Now, this act was amended in 1991, where making punishment more stringent and also making provisions for protection of specified plants, species, and conservation of the endangered species. So it was made, so in order to protect the environment with respect to protection of wildlife, more stringent punishment to be awarded. That is why 1991 amendment was basically passed. Now, one more thing is mentioned is with respect to the Biosphere Reserve in your NCERT. Now, Biosphere Reserve is a very interesting concept which has been asked in your papers repeatedly, particularly with respect to the various zones. We'll study that also. Biosphere Reserve is a unique and representative ecosystem of terrestrial and coastal areas, which are internationally recognized by a framework of Man and Biosphere program. Now, these areas are basically have certain objectives, and that is why they're created. They're very critical to the environment and the ecosystem. That is why they're declared as biosphere reserves. Now, the objective is first, conservation of the biodiversity and the ecosystem. Second objective that we see over here is logistics. What do you mean by logistics? That means international network for the research and monitoring. That means international cooperation. Third is development, that is association of environment with development. That means balancing of development and environment protection is to be there. These are the three core ideas of Biosphere Reserve. When you study the Biosphere Reserve from a structural perspective, there are three areas or regions that are present. Over here, the internal part is known as the core area. This is the most protected area. Over here, no human activity is actually allowed. This can be like a national park region over here. That means this is the core region. And surroundingly, you move ahead, restrictions are more eased. So let us see the first of the internal part, that is the core area. The core area or the core zone is the most protected. It is a most protected region. May contain endemic plants and animals. It is free from the human interference. So human activities are very limited or not allowed here, like tourism, and tourism restrictions are also there. You cannot have settlements over here. It is not allowed, right? So human, free from the human interference as such. So that this is very critical for the protection of the environment. A layer outside this is a buffer zone. This particular green part is a buffer zone. Now, it is a middle zone. Many people get confused. They assume that transition zone is a middle zone because they consider transition something between something. So, transition will be their middle zone. No. Do not get confused. Transition zone is the outermost zone. Okay? The buffer zone is a middle zone. Activities are managed in an area in a way that help in the protection of the core area. That is the major thing. So, all those activities that are here are allowed to an extent. Lesser restrictions are there in comparison to the core zone. So it acts as a buffer for the core zone to be protected. That is why includes limited tourism, fishing, grazing, and some research activities and educational activities are allowed here. Outermost are the transition zone, which you can see over here, like, which is marked in white. Outermost part of the Biosphere Reserve, it is a zone of cooperation where human activities and conservation are done in harmony. Zone of cooperation, again, it means that both the development activities and the protection of the environment is done, and both the activities will be present here. So this is the structure or the zones with respect to the Biosphere Reserve. Now, coming to the last, these are all the Biosphere Reserve in India. Let's see one by one. Run of Kutch in Gujarat, right? Panchmani in Madhya Pradesh, Panna in Madhya Pradesh, Nilgiri in Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka region, Agastamalai in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, Gulf of Mannar, you have Sheshchalan in Andhra Pradesh, you have the Great Nicobar, you have the Achanakar and Amarkantak, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, you have the Simlipal in Odisha, you have the Sundarban in West Bengal. If you come to the northeastern region, you have the Nokrik in Meghalaya, you have the Manas in Assam, you have the Dibro Saikhoam in Assam, you have Dihang Dibhang in Arunachal Pradesh, you have Kanchandunga in Sikkim, you have Nanda Devi in Uttarakhand, you have the cold desert in Himachal Pradesh. Now over here, all the locations have been marked, and along with it, all the states have been marked over here. This can be asked in your paper that which particular biosphere reserves falls in which particular state. So this, if you have done, you will be ready with your questions on the Biosphere Reserve also, right? So with this, we come to the end of the topic of the natural vegetation. Hopefully you enjoy this lecture. I want all of you to write the answers in the comment section. Please remember, students, I'm repeating it once more. The NCERT is from the core of your preparation. You neglect it, that means you're neglecting your name in the rank list. You do not study now, that means you will be in a position after some time that you will regret, why did you not study? The feeling of regret is the worst feeling in life. Many people in the process of studying during this examination perceive that we have to study huge books, big 1,000 pages books. In that process, you tend to neglect these NCERTs, and the outcome is you neglect or your name goes out of the final PDF of the UPSC. Do not neglect this. Do not do this crime that is associated with the UPSC preparation. And if you study well, I'm telling you, first do the basics and the foundation, which is NCERT, that builds and gives you a command over the subject, and then obviously other things can be built. So take care. Hopefully you enjoy this lecture. We'll be meeting in the next lecture, which has got to do with the soil. That is again a very interesting lecture. We'll meet you in. Then, meanwhile, take care and Jai Hind, and lots of love from our side and the PW Only IAS team. Take care. Jai Hind.